Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Olympus and welcome to our first official pose down video. So for our first video, thought we'd go with a bit of a different comparisons, one that I haven't really seen anyone do yet. William Bonac at the 2018 Arnold Classic Ohio versus Lee Priest at the 1997 Mr. Olympia. William Bonac won the Arnold Classic and Lee Priest placed I believe it was 6th.
Yes,
he placed
6th that year.
Placed 6th this year. So we thought it'd be interesting to compare them. They're both shorter bodybuilders. I believe Bonac is listed at 5'7". Lee Priest is listed at 5'4". I'm not sure I believe Bonac's 5'7" listing, considering the Rolly Winkler is listed to be 5'6". I'm not sure I believe that. But they are both definitely shorter bodybuilders. So, without further ado, we'll get the comparison on. And first pose of the night, we have the front double bicep. And Kyle, what's your opinion on this one?
Okay, personally, I've got William winning this one. He's much more conditioned. It looks like he's got better arms. He's got a better V. His abs look actually visible. His legs actually have detail as opposed to Lee's, which just kind of look like chunks. They look like a tree trunk is just kind of there.
I do agree with the legs. William Bonac does have better separation in his legs. Lee Priest, I personally think Lee does have the better V-taper because of his he's got the tighter waist. However, if we come up to the arms, Lee has better biceps. Forearms, I'd give him the forearms. And William has the better tricep sweep. But I think the overall package that William is presenting is a bit more complete. Yeah, it could go either way because Lee Priest does have these monstrous biceps. I mean, it's very
the size of his head.
It's very rare that you get a bicep that's full and peaky at the same time.
Yeah, normally it's either long and kind of flat or very short and very tall. It's not very often you get a
William does have
short
decently... Yeah, William does have decently peaky full biceps as well, but not on the same levels as Lee. So this pose, do you want to call it a draw actually? Because William is more complete, but Lee has that. He has that wow factor.
Well,
with the big biceps and the.
Well, a winner always has to be chosen. I'd go with William here.
You know, the William. Fair enough. I can agree with that. William wins the front double bicep. Going over to the back double bicep, and I think this is a pretty clear...
This is a very clear
conclusion
for William. He's got... Well, first of all, let's acknowledge his glutes compared to Lee's.
Much more conditioned, better shape, fuller. He's definitely much thicker than Lee through the back. He's got a better lat insertions. Traps... Lee might have better traps, bigger traps, but William has better separation between the traps and the lats.
Something that Lee does have on William, though, is that bicep peak from the back.
He does have much better bicep peak. Although William does have better tricep sweep, so you could say that the arms are maybe about equal. Delts, that's a tough one. I think William has slightly better delts. He's got a better rear delt, that's for sure. Definitely a thicker rear delt. They're pretty close in the delt department. But if we come down to the hamstrings, William's definitely showing better hamstring development. His quads are wider. And like we said, he has better striated glutes. And just better detail and thickness overall. So, back double bicep goes to William Bonac. Now over to the back lat spread, and unfortunately, pictures of Lee Priest's back in general are hard to come by for these earlier years.
Few and far between.
Very few and far between.
So we had to settle for one that was at an odd angle.
Yeah, not the best angle. However, I think it's telling the same story as the back double bicep.
It says enough.
It says enough, yeah. Lee does look better in this pose, but he still can't match that overall thickness that William's bringing. His traps are thicker and more separated. Their arms, once again, look pretty similar in this pose. But William by far has the better wheels, much more developed and striated glutes, better hamstrings. We can actually see the calves in this pose, and it's kind of hard to say. Lee might actually have slightly better calves.
If the photos were at the same angle, then
yeah, unfortunately, it's the angle and quality does make it hard to tell. But William still wins the back double bicep.
Rear lat spread.
Rear lat spread. My bad. Carly to correct me. Now we come to the front lat spread, and this
one's tough.
This is a tougher one. I'm not certain if Lee is actually wider than William, but his tighter waist and better V-taper does definitely give him the illusion of being wider. And in this pose, he actually looks slightly more conditioned in this pose. He's got that grainy 90s look.
Yeah, he's got that grainy 90s look, but his legs are still looking weird. His quad up closer to his hips, you can see them. You can see the definition there. But closer to his knees, it's conditioned, but the lines aren't there as much.
Yeah, it's I guess it's really apples and oranges. William Bonac, he's got that sort of smoother, more modern look that the guys
I quite like that smooth look as opposed to the grainy.
Super grainy. You just pissed off the entire bodybuilding community right there with that one. But I understand what you mean, yeah. Even so, with that in mind, I think the better V-taper on Lee, obviously it makes him look wider. His lats are slightly more... They look like they're flaring out a bit more in this pose. I've never really liked Williams' front lat spread because he's always been a bit too arm dominant. It overpowers. He's pretty similar to Phil Heath in that way, and he's just not structurally suited to this pose. Surprisingly, Lee, his chest actually looks better in this pose, which is weird because that's normally not the case because Lee's always had a smaller chest than most people. That's where he normally loses points.
And in most poses, his arms just overpower the rest of him.
Yeah, but in this pose, pretty well balanced. Traps, you can't really see them too much in this pose.
Oh, going back to Lee's chest, it looks very thick here.
Yeah, it does look. And
there's a lot of...
And like muscle. I said, it's got that grainy, dense look to it that a lot of those 90s guys have. So, given the structural advantage that Lee has and the better chest, at least in this pose, I'd give this pose to Lee Priest. You agree?
Yeah, I'd say Lee takes this one.
Lee wins the front lat spread. Now, coming over to the crab most muscular, and this is a tough one. They're both pretty strong in this pose. William's got the better chest. It's fuller and larger. Lee Priest has got that sort of chest split, but it does make his chest look smaller and more caved in than Williams. Coming down to the legs, I
reckon Williams got that one in the legs, more conditioned.
Yeah, it looks a bit more conditioned.
Look a bit bigger.
I think William does have wider quads than Lee does. Also, coming up to the shoulders, I'd say Williams are slightly fuller, whereas Lee's look a bit grainier and more conditioned. So I guess
Williams got better rear delts here as well. Instead of looking
his rear delts
instead of looking like kind of a curve from tricep up through shoulder to trap on Lee, it looks like you can clearly see tricep, then just this mound of shoulder, another mound for traps.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Williams got that more modern 3D look to him. Whereas, like I said, it is really a case of apples and oranges, whether you prefer the fuller, rounded look of the modern guys or the grainier, harder look of the 90s guys. Personally, I think when it comes to the most muscular poses, the shoulders are very important. I think, again, personally, the shoulders in a most muscular pose should be rounded. That's my opinion. I think they look better.
Yeah, having the
3D muscles looks better. Going down to the arms, I think actually Lee's probably beating him in the arms.
Especially in the forearms.
Yeah, Lee's definitely got... Lee had very good forearms.
Lee had, I think, 17-inch forearms.
It wouldn't surprise me. He had ridiculous forearms.
Very big forearms.
Traps, similar. I think Lee's showing his traps a bit better in this pose.
Yes.
Midsection's kind of hard to tell. They're both hiding it. It's difficult to see on both of them. Ooh, this is a tough one. What do you think?
I reckon I'd go with Bonac here. The shoulders, legs, chest. Can't really say traps. The traps can go either way. It depends. I reckon Bonac has more things going for him.
More completeness overall.
Yeah. Lee only has the arms. He's got arms and forearms to him.
William also looks wider in this pose. That's another thing he gets points for. He does appear structurally.
That could be
better.
the angle of the photos.
Could be the angle, yeah, of course. You have to consider that. I think William's a bit closer to the camera in this pose. I think this is another pose that could go either way. It depends on what your preference is. However, I think for us, William Bonac wins this pose. Now, jumping over the hands clasp, and this one I think is a bit easier. Both have very powerful arms, good shoulders, but Lee's chest, and this is what I was talking about earlier, how Lee having a small chest, you can see, especially his upper chest, on his right pec, his upper chest is almost non-existent in this pose. His pecs were always very small in proportion to the rest of his body.
His arms, on the other hand...
His arms are very powerful. In fact, I think he may be beating William again in the arm department.
He's very lean arms as well. He's got a very clear separation between tricep, bicep, and brachialis.
Very good separation. Coming down the legs. Could be imagining things, but I think I'm seeing possibly some slight feathering in the legs.
Maybe. It could
Not
be.
certain.
That could be like his skin, though.
It's difficult to tell. I'd still give overall separation to William again, and obviously size. He's definitely got wider quads. Coming up to the midsection, William's always had a very blocky and washed out midsection. He's never had good abs, but I don't think it's enough to save Lee in this pose. I think his chest.
Lee has very good abs.
Lee has very good abs.
They look very developed, but it's not.
It's not enough.
It won't save him.
It won't make up for his
chest.
And I think, once again, William does have more rounded shoulders.
Especially in the hands clasped most muscular, it's very important to have rounded shoulders.
Yeah, definitely.
Otherwise, you'll just look small.
I think if Lee's chest was bigger, it could definitely go either way, and it might even favour Lee. But because of his chest, I would give it to William.
William has
overall
a very complete look.
Overall complete
in his pose.
Which that's always been William's strong point. He was never structurally brilliant, but he was in terms of muscular development, he was always very complete.
Yes.
He had very few weak points. The only real weak point
of William is having almost no weak points.
The only real weak point you could say might be his abs.
Yeah, that's one, maybe his calves.
He's got average calves, I'd say.
Be fair, it's pretty hard to get...
They're not necessarily a strong point, but I wouldn't call them a weak point. I think they're...
Be fair, it is pretty hard to find somebody with very developed calves.
Yeah. Dorian-esque calves don't come along very often. They tend to be pretty rare.
I'm telling you, calves are genetic.
Same thing with forearms. You don't often see giant forearms. William has good forearms, but Lee definitely has the better brachialis. But even so, I think William
takes this one as well.
William takes this pose. Coming over to the side tricep, and this is an interesting one because I think Lee's tricep may actually be bigger, and it does look better conditioned. His shoulder, I think his shoulder looks better in this pose.
Lee's?
Yeah, Lee's. I think his shoulder does look a bit bigger in this pose. However, William has the better chest.
Oh yeah,
it's
wider.
Point
that out. His
thicker.
chest is very big in this pose. Also from this angle, his lat.
You can see his lat.
His lat looks very
jutting out a bit. He definitely looks wider than Lee in this pose. Traps. I think Lee might actually be beating him here in the traps. Slightly fuller.
Although it kind of looks like his left trap is bigger. The left trap it goes to Lee, but the right one goes to Will. Slightly.
Yeah, because I think Lee's tensing up that left trap. Yeah, that would be his left trap. Our right, his left. He's tensing it up a lot more, whereas William's sort of tensing both up to a similar degree. I initially had William winning this pose, but after looking at it a bit more, I think with the better waist and the overall better arm, I think Lee actually takes this pose.
Lee even looks slightly classic with the way he's hitting it. It looks like his waist is very small.
Yeah, he's got the,
When
like I
he's
said, he's
doing
got the much tighter waist. Definitely better abs.
He looks quite wide, very small waist. The chest is an issue for him in this one, though.
It's not too bad in this pose. It's definitely not as bad as it was in the hands clasped.
True.
I think overall Lee wins this pose just for the better arms and slightly better conditioning through the tricep.
Yeah. He's beating him in the tricep,
which is the most important.
The pose is the side
It is
tricep.
dedicated to the tricep.
Yeah, I reckon Lee takes this one.
Lee takes it. Moving on to the side chest, and I couldn't find a picture of William in the purple trunks. So we've got one from the blue trunks, and I think this is during the pre-judging. So he's visibly not as conditioned in this pose. However, this is the side chest pose, and I think we have to acknowledge how weak Lee's chest actually is.
I mean, in this photo, because he's not flexing his left pec, it looks very big. However,
his left pec is small in proportion to his body, and his right pec is scrunched, like ridiculously.
On their own, they look fine, but next to his ginormous arms,
yeah, they're definitely proportionally much smaller.
Also,
Good.
His shoulders look very small here.
Yeah, his this right shoulder isn't so bad. I can't see what you mean with the left shoulder.
Like,
it does look a bit scrunched.
Like,
in
it's
this
very
pose.
wide. However, it doesn't have that full cannonball look. That
It doesn't have those implanted bowling balls in his arms.
yeah.
He's definitely more conditioned than William in this, just because, you know,
It's the prejudging.
like I said, I'm assuming this is from the prejudging. And William's definitely, he's not as sharp in this pose. However, he does have the much bigger and thicker chest. It's much more proportional to the rest of his body. Lee has the better arms, but William's winning in the shoulder department. Obviously, we can't see the legs here, but just based off what we can see, and obviously this is a side chest pose, and William definitely has the better chest.
Yes.
So the side chest goes to William. And finally, our last pose, the abs and thighs, and
Personally, I'd say Lee takes this one hands down.
yeah, I think this is a pose that exposed William's greatest flaw, which was his structure.
He's
Yeah.
very
Very, Blocky, he has that very stocky look, which does work for him in certain poses, but in an abs and thighs pose,
That's not
it's just
the look
not
you're going
effective. Obviously, William generally hits this version of it, as opposed to the standard abs and
for.
thighs.
He'd hit the side-on version because it makes his waist look smaller.
It hides his waist more, so he actually looks better in this version than he does in the standard version. But Lee is still beating him. He's got the, obviously much tighter waist.
Developed abs.
Better
as
developed
opposed
abs.
To Williams kind of washed
But
out.
William has pretty good obliques in this pose, but so does Lee. Lee's showing more serratus development.
I mean, William hasn't got any kind of Sean Ray.
He's
obliques.
not on Sean Ray's level, but definitely developed. Coming down to the legs, and I actually think
Lee's legs look very full in this this pose.
I don't know if William just wasn't tensing them properly in this pose, but his separation has kind of faded a bit as opposed to the other poses. I'd actually give Lee the wheels in this pose.
I reckon Lee takes pretty much everything in this pose.
Yeah, there's really nothing. Maybe thickness of the chest. William has a better chest, that's about it.
Yeah, true.
Lee is winning both major components of this pose, better abs and better thighs, so Lee Priest takes the abs and thighs. And
Agreed.
I think that's our last pose, so what does that bring the score to?
So, that's 5-3. William wins.
So, William was the more complete bodybuilder overall, and I think he was perhaps slightly more conditioned in this show, although, like we said, Lee had that grainier 90s look to him. The modern guys injecting synthol and diuretics, like we said, tend to have that smoother look to their muscle. Not necessarily unconditioned, but the muscle itself tends to look less dense. You can see Lee has... the muscle looks denser. That's that dense, grainy look. So, in overall completeness, William Bonac wins it. It definitely, I could see an argument being made for William. For Lee Priest, simply because he does have, the tighter waist, arguably the more aesthetic physique, and that a slightly more perhaps classic physique as opposed to William. It really is apples and oranges, but in our comparison, William Bonac wins.
Yep.
So if you disagree with any of our opinions, drop a comment below. We'd love to read them. Thanks for tuning into our first proper video. And we'll see you next time.